Okay, so the Irish Times lead with Firmino leaves it late to ruin PSG's unlikely comeback. Klopp opens campaign with resolute intent. I love the drop quote here. It's Mbappe was kept on the margins of the contest by the Scotland captain's intelligent marking. That's one of those pieces that you write. 85 minutes, you're going, grand, this is great. Mbappe, where the hell are you? And then, but then it's too late because then something else happens and you don't have time to take it out. I mean, it is the curse of having to write match reports on the whistle. Mbappe, where was he? And I was like, oh God, there he is. And then it's like, oh, hang on, he's just giving the ball away.
Well, the thing is, if you're writing at Anfield, at least you can actually have a paragraph that every Liverpool fan is expected to read this morning, which is a magical night at Anfield. So you can write your piece of poetry about how this is supposedly the greatest stadium in the world and have that paragraph just copy and paste it into your article at some point. Even if it's a bore 0-0 draw, it's still one of the magical European nights at Anfield. So at least you could write half your article before you actually arrive at the stadium.
It was a legit magical night, though. You've got like
tongue-in-cheek. It was.
You've got Neymar and Mbappe, and they're 2-0 down, and then it's like, balls, it's 2-all. And then it's like, it's an absolute classic of a game.
How the hell did Roberto Firmino's goal go in? Just like in terms of pure physics, in terms of the fact that the ball is not supposed to actually go through your body. Like if there was a person standing in front of a ball, it collides off that person and it goes away from the goal. There was 14 PSG players between Roberto Firmino and the back of the net last night, and somehow it just slipped through all of their bodies. I still don't quite understand how it all happened.
What did it remind you of?
David Clifford.
It did.
I didn't want to make that. I didn't want to make that comparison because it's like, but you brought that up.
I was looking at it last night going, I've just seen this before. I've seen this film before. I know exactly what this is.
Yeah. So thank you. You brought it up. David Clifford.
Had you not brought it up last night when it happened? Did you not just
not on air? No.
Why not?
Because like
the first thing you thought of though.
Not the first thing I thought of. After
when
a while,
you see the
replay from the reverse angle.
The replay from the reverse angle. You're like, I've seen this.
Yeah. Or else, like, to be more apt, Maradona against Belgium, which of course was what the Clifford thing reminded a lot of people of, that precise picture. So let's go with Maradona for sake of making cross-sport references.
No. Let's go with Clifford because it's the one that everybody has seen this summer. So eye-catching. Firmino returns from injury to fire Liverpool to a thrilling victory, of course, jabbing himself in the eye as the goal celebration. What did you make of Salah smashing the water bottle down?
Well, just before that, he's like this when the camera pans, so we don't actually see that bit. And then it comes back and then he smashes the water bottle down. Like, it's not like slamming the water bottle down. It's like, yeah, we just did that sort of thing. Or else, I don't know.
He hates all of his co-workers. I mean, there's a bit of tension at the moment, obviously.
Yeah.
I thought the tension was with Mane, not Firmino. I can't keep up with the sibling rivalry.
Yeah, like I don't quite know. I would say Daniel Sturridge probably had more right to be slamming a water bottle on the ground last night after the chances he missed. But
Sturridge's header was brilliant.
It was brilliant, but he missed two big chances in the second half. Simple as that. The offside, that was a heavy touch from Daniel Sturridge. The ball didn't come at him with a lot of pace. And then the free header he had, which he didn't even head. It just collided off his shoulder. Like in the first half, I'm like, Daniel Sturridge is back. Kenny Cunningham was in last night and he was like, he won't last, the full game. He's better impact sub. And maybe he was right in the second half. Maybe his performance tailed off. When does he get to a point where he's able to do that for a full 90 minutes?
For a player who Klopp has repeatedly given out about his injury profile, his unwillingness to play through pain, all that kind of stuff, to have him suddenly be a meaningful contributor on a big night in the Champions League is, I think, like a new signing.
Yeah, fair play to him. Fair play to him for scoring his goal. But if you're actually if you've got designs on winning the Champions League, well, then your number 9 probably needs to convert one of those two huge chances in the second half to not even let yourself be in a situation where you have to have a dramatic finale.
Okay, so appetite for change, unanimous Central Council support for second-tier football championship. There is a second-tier football championship coming. There will be proper change in the football championship within 25 years. I bet you within the next quarter of a century, they're going to finally fix the football championship structures. So the Irish...
No, there'll be change. They won't fix it, but there will be change.
The Irish Independent. Mayo back Leahy as row heats up. County Board endorsed manager for 2019 and criticised Exile Group's calculated statement. The County Board's statement in response to the departed Mayo footballers. We're the only ones calling them the departed, by the way. That was a straight off the cuff yesterday. Tom was like, call them the departed. Anyway, so the County Board statement was very strong about this, and they're basically accusing the players of the Carnacon players really of trying to agitate to cause the most distress possible, and that was kind of the point that the county board secretary was making with you last night, that they believed that there was a coup underway, that they thwarted that Sunday afternoon when that meeting was supposed to happen. That was kind of the point that he was making yesterday. So Limerick begin defensive crown with Cork rematch. The fixtures are out for the Munster Hurling Championship next year, and it looks like they are going to on May the 19th. They're going to have a bye in the first round, Limerick will have, and then May the 19th is the first one, so May the 12th is that one. Okay, so we were talking to you through the newspapers a little bit earlier on, but we ended up going to the Champions League a little bit earlier than usual. I think I had done pretty much all of the broadsheets. I had done the Indo, yeah? I had done the Examiner and I'd done the Indo, yeah. Got the Irish News for you here as well. So, county demands affecting mental health, says study. Which is interesting, the SRI are backing up the whole notion that the amount of time and commitment is putting a strain on players' mental health. When the Mayo ladies mentioned mental health, people suddenly went weak at the knees, go and prove it. Let's see the time that you had off work, let's see the doctor's certificates. But the SRI have said that actually playing intercounty, it puts such a demand on your time that it can have an impact on your mental health. So.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it, about the story? As soon as that was mentioned, and I guess, like in terms of the mediation process, in terms of the solution that was found, or that the county board are trying to find, clearly the topic of mental health wasn't really discussed at all. It wasn't really considered. It was kind of brushed under the carpet, and that's not to say that this is like a unique part of the current Mayo lady situation. That's just a part of Irish society and sport at the moment, really. I think there's just a general misunderstanding of it all. And, you know, like they said it themselves in their statement 2 nights ago, that they've been referred to as weak and hysterical and all that sort of stuff. And I think that all kind of feeds into it. But at the same time... And
that accurately predicted the response to the statement too. It was like, this is how everybody has responded to us so far. And then, without actually listening to the audio, most people have gone, wow, you're just weak and hysterical. I can't believe you're so weak and hysterical.
But that's what I just want to say. Like, I think, like, just get into this for a moment. Like, I think when it comes to Peter Leahy's situation, I think there's large elements of that you can kind of sympathise with in terms of player management, in terms of, you know, often towing a hard line, which is often necessary. And then there's also another half of me which really sympathises with the player's point of view, in terms of, you know, if they're saying that this is stuff that's really affecting their mental health, then you've got to take that at face value, then this is a really serious issue. So ultimately, I think that there's very valid points on both sides, but yes, when you look at how this has been discussed, particularly on social media, it's almost as if this very nuanced discussion is the most unnuanced discussion I've ever seen, where people almost have a preconceived notion of which side they want to pick and have doubled down on it, despite the fact that we've heard more from both parties. It just doesn't make sense to me. Is this part of the human condition? Is this part of where we're at in the year 2018, where everything is either black or white now, and you pick a side, and you better believe you've got to stay with it. You cannot change your mind. You cannot possibly listen to the other side. And when you do listen to the other side, you've either got to refer to Peter Leahy as a crazy aggressor, or if you're on Peter Leahy's side, you've got to refer to the women as weak and hysterical. So people have battened down the hatches and picked their side, and this has become... like an absolute war of attrition between two sides in an argument, when in actual fact this is actually one of the most grey area topics that we've discussed on the show. So I just don't understand why that has been the reaction, but that's certainly how I've seen it.
The Secretary of the Mayo LGFA County Board was on last night with Eoin to discuss the situation in Mayo. He said that yesterday was the first time he heard the county players refer to mental health issues.
That was new to us in terms of that particular statement. There was nothing raised that we would have said. We did. How about this way now? What we had was we had a situation that where players there might have been an issue. Peter would have raised something with us if he thought there was an issue. When we did raise those issues, there was nothing to be dealt with further on because we spoke to those players. In terms of mental health issues, where these things can affect people in different ways, and it takes over a period of time. When you look at this happening from the 5th of July onwards, for us from a county board to now, which is just over 2 months later, some of these things take a while to sink in with different people. So we weren't aware of any mental health issues, or that wasn't raised to it specifically at that meeting.
And did Peter Leahy have any idea? Like, I'm just trying to establish here, was the mention of mental health yesterday, was that the first time that became known by the Mayo LGFA County Board, the first time that became known by Peter Leahy?
Yes, it did. Yeah, it became known that no other player
no idea before last night
raised mental health issues to us, or any form of health issues caused by them leaving the panel.
Yeah, so a bunch of people got in touch to say that it didn't appear as if the Mayo LGFA were saying that the first time that they'd heard the audio of Sarah Tierney was on the show last night. And so we got one of our production team to get in touch. And so the text exchange was, just double checking one quick thing from the interview. Did yourself and the county board hear from Sarah Tierney, etc. in the press conference before you released your own press statement? Answer, we had most of our statement prepared in advance. Okay, thanks, Kevin. So was tonight on the show the first time you heard that particular Sarah Tierney audio? Yes, I didn't get to see the news earlier. Okay, thanks, Kevin. Do you know which members of the county board were involved in drafting the statement? Just looking for clarification. All of the executive had an opportunity to review and suggest alterations to it. Then it could only be signed by the executive. And last question was, thanks. And is the executive the entire board, or who's on the executive? And am I right in thinking you're part of the executive? And we just hadn't got a final answer to that last question there. So just to clarify, it kind of, at various stages during the interview, it did seem as if the county board had heard parts of the press conference, but in the aftermath, we expressly made sure that their spokesperson last night, whether or not he had heard it before the statement had been written, and it turns out that the secretary of the Mayo Ladies County Board hadn't heard the press conference audio where the players gave chapter and verse on what they said were the details of the interactions with the Mayo manager that had led to them leaving the panel, and they hadn't heard that audio before they released a statement, which didn't seem like it made a lot of sense. No, because it did seem that the statement was a response to the press conference that the departed players had released the previous night and all that sort of stuff. So it didn't actually make sense to me at all. It didn't really compute that would be the case, but that's just the way it is. I suppose it was a coincidence that they were drafting it. I think that the statement by the LGFA County Board was actually in response to the previous statement, so the one that was released 2 weeks prior to yesterday. So we're talking, like that was the last sort of notable statement we've had was 2 weeks ago, and I think yesterday's LGFA statement was in response to that, not the one that happened the night before. That's kind of where we're at on that one. So they hadn't seen it, just to confirm that. This is going to come to exist in an academic textbook as how not to deal with a crisis situation. Yeah, it's a case study, isn't it? The thing is, do all good case studies have a resolution? No. No, they don't. I mean, there's a bunch of different resolutions to this one, that the players who've left never play again, that the manager leaves, that somehow... But even when the manager leaves, there's clearly going to be distrust between the players who stayed and the players who left. And maybe the players who left, maybe they don't play for Mayo again, and maybe that is the right solution. It's like it's a very awkward scenario. And we're still waiting for the precise nature of the details of the Connacht County Board or Connacht Council decision. Just waiting for the precise plan of action from... It's been suggested that the Connacht players have been banned, and whether or not they're going to appeal now is the big thing. Because ultimately, there are two separate stories here. There's the issue with the Mayo team, and then there's how the County Board at Mayo are punishing the players from one club who were involved in that scenario. Well, we wouldn't have the former if we didn't have the latter. Let's not forget that the only reason this story blew up is because of the expulsion of Carnacon. Right? That was like 12th of August or whatever it was. Richie had the timeline on the show last night. And that was when this kind of really spilled over. It was like, wait a minute, they're being gotten rid of, they're being ejected from Connacht competition. And I think then people started to pry a little bit into what actually happened prior to this. And
maybe we wouldn't have all the statements we had over the last 2 weeks if it wasn't for that actual expulsion. And who knows, the mediation process that is all confidential, all going on behind closed doors, and we're told it's with one of the best mediators in the country, a tremendous mediator. That is something that might have actually resolved it all before the dirty laundry got out into the line.
Darren, how are you?
I'm good, Chair.
Welcome back.
Thank you very much.
So while you were away, the Dublin ladies footballers managed to assert their dominance.
Yes, so we're champions of ladies football too. The world domination continues.
The over 40s as well. Do you know, we didn't bring this up, but the over 40s have roll on, roll off subs. So Dublin basically have a panel of 1,000 players. Like Donegal have 17.
Yeah, but all these over 40s never won anything.
Yeah, well, we were saying that
true.
Cluxton's going to be there in like 2 years' time or whatever it is, and it'll be like, oh, hang on a second here.
Jerry, don't fear for the over 40s competition.
Joking.
I wouldn't be surprised with the level of hysteria on off the ball when Dublin win anything.
You're not getting wound up about it either.
No.
Definitely not.
I'm in fine form. I'm going to start by taking it easy and not worrying.
A quick bit about Manchester United and whether or not. So, Brian Kerr's making the point that young boys, he'd seen them up to this point, that Man City or Man United are going to have too much for them. Are we sure of that? Are we sure that this current Man United team are going to go away in Europe and just routinely beat another Champions League team?
Well, we can't be sure of that, but there would be a strong suspicion that they could. Like, when was the last time they really went and did that to anybody, is the question. When was the last time that they went and just like completely said, no, we're the best team here, we're going to swat you aside, believe in what we can do attacking wise, and play with that sort of reckless abandon, not reckless abandon, but an abandon that, say, Liverpool played with last night. They clearly don't have that in their locker at the moment. It's a far more pragmatic approach. It means that they're far less likely to crash out of the group stages, you would suspect, while they're also very unlikely to actually completely destroy a team in the manner that some other teams in Europe can do. Now, that led to like a belief last season where Manchester United were supposedly poised to challenge for the Champions League title. Like, people were like, you know, give them 2 legs, you know, they go away from home and they'll park the bus and they'll bring it back to Old Trafford and they'll nip a goal at home or whatever it is. I think that's changed now. I don't think they're able to do that, but I think in terms of progression from the group stages, I think they'll coast through, no?
Well, Valencia and Juve in the same group, I don't know.
Valencia's the one. Valencia's the one that'll decide whether or not to go through. But
Ray was making the point earlier that things are not going very well for Valencia at the moment. But like, this campaign is so long. Ultimately, it's a weird scenario, but this is a must-win game for Manchester United straight off the bat. And if there's any sense of them, like, you know, not being at it as they have been in some of these games against lesser teams just recently, then it could go pear-shaped pretty quickly.
Yeah, it is.
That period of Manchester United over, basically, is the question I'm asking.
There is certainly light at the end of the tunnel, isn't there? Has there been just a tiny glimmer that this actually might be turning? Now, granted, you're basing this off the back of a win against Burnley, who are in a bit of trouble, and so we can basically discount that. And suddenly we're basing this all on the Watford results. We're basing it on the fact that Chris Smalling looked like Alan Shearer when he scored a goal at the weekend, and this is why Manchester United might be able to finish ahead of Juventus in the Champions League group. So I accept that that's absolutely ridiculous, but ultimately sport is all about clinging on to those little moments of hope, and who knows what little kind of spark will ignite a Manchester United season. It needs some sort of ignition, obviously, after the Spurs defeat, and I suspect that they've got something.
Darren, what else going on?
Yeah, Liverpool fans, Jerry, waking up in fine form this morning, as you've discussed. Roberto Firmino, the hero, he netted the dramatic win as the Reds beat Paris Saint-Germain 3-2 in their Champions League opener. Manager Jurgen Klopp feels it is a crucial victory, and he piled the praise on Daniel Sturridge after the game.
An outstandingly strong opponent, so it was necessary that we played good. The atmosphere was fantastic. It's so special to do these things in that stadium, and so yeah, it was nice. Great performance of Daniel, to be honest. I said the three in midfield did an outstanding job, but they only can do it when they're both two wingers and in how we play it. And the number 9 is helping in all these situations also keep the formation compact. It was fantastic. I said to Daniel before the game, we're in the best shape since I know you, physical wise, and now you have to use that, and that's what he did. Super game, super goal.
There's a lot of people on social media comparing Thomas Tuchel's face to Phil Neville's face. Do they look alike? I just, he was obviously in the background of that photograph there. I really don't see it. they were saying it in the office last night, and then when I went home, I saw it on Twitter as well. And I think exotic Phil Neville is how he was described.
Tanned Phil Neville.
Tanned Phil Neville, exactly. I'm sure we can get a photograph up.
They both have the same kind of scowl. They both look like they'd look weird. They'd scare you if they smiled.
Yeah, exactly.
I see a bit of the shape. It's like the cheekbones and the skinny cheeks. That's it.
So here we go. We've got them both up on screen here. Like, I don't see it personally. I think it's one. I don't know how this doppelganger question has managed to grow legs over the past 24 hours, because I just don't see it.
I can kind of see it. The cheekbones, the facial expression, the inability to smile and look happy.
The constant longing of sadness in his eyes. The morbid nature of one's soul.
Speaking of someone who had sadness in his eyes last night on, the Tottenham boss, Mauricio Pochettino.
See what he did there, folks? You see what he did?
He was not very happy. He felt they didn't deserve to lose their Champions League clash with Inter Milan. They conceded 2 late goals to go down 2-1 in Italy. Pochettino forced to defend his team selection after that game. He left Kieran Trippier and Toby Alderweireld at home for the match. And one reporter asked, should he have done differently? Would he have done differently? And he slapped that suggestion down.
Why? Why disrespect the players that are in the pitch? You can blame me and say, Gaffa, you were so rubbish in your election of the starting 11. But please, don't disrespect the people or the players are playing because it's my decision. Of course, Trippier, Alderweireld, we have 25 players, and you believe that, and sometimes you behave with your question, you ask me like only can play 11 and another 13 or 14 player are rubbish. I think it's so easy, it's so easy to, I don't know, sorry, but I am so disappointed, because I am a person that respect you a lot and respect the player. And when my decision are to play with 11, you must respect my decision, because I am the manager. And you cannot disrespect. You are you show too much disrespectful to the player that play in the position.
Well, it sounds a little bit like Cartman. Respect my authority.
He took it very personally, though. He seemed to really take offence to the suggestion that the players he brought weren't good enough.
I mean, I can understand that. It's like they're Spurs players. They're in my Champions League squad. What do you expect?
And they were 5 minutes away from being the heroic second string.
I can see why you get pissed off at that. Like, it wasn't the second string, really. He has traditionally changed his team a lot. It's just that Trippier is playing well at the moment, and also is English, and so therefore undroppable.
Yeah, has he changed his team a lot? Or
he's changed his fullbacks a lot.
That's what I was just about to say. He's changed his fullbacks a lot. I'm not sure has he changed like the core of his team that much at all. In fact, I would say that they've probably got the thinnest core of a squad in the top 6 in the Premier League.
Well, I was looking at the bench last night. So Danny Rose, Wanyama, Lucas Moura, Llorente,
but it's
Harry
so,
Winks. It's not a.
It's so uniform, though. It's so sort of, this is the sub that you have to make because you've got your 15 or 16 players. Dembele comes off, Wanyama goes on. Harry Kane needs a rest, Llorente starts. There is almost like a book of managing Tottenham Hotspur at the moment, that this is the player that slots into this spot when X or Y is tired. And there is no sort of creativity, at least with Manchester United. You look at a Jose Mourinho team sheet and you're like, God, I wonder what he can do here. With Spurs, you know exactly what he's going to do.
Well, that's not a negative.
That's not
everybody understanding what their role is.
Not necessarily negative. I didn't say it was negative, but I just think that the idea that Pochettino can chop and change at will is just not true. Or
the idea that it would have changed the result. The fact that they conceded 2 late goals, bit of a sucker punch, and just a suggestion, it was the fact that he rubbed it in so quickly afterwards. Like, Mauricio, do you think you made a really big mistake in hindsight, despite the fact that these extraordinary circumstances occurred and probably couldn't have been prevented by even if those 2 players had travelled?
It does feel like he touched a bit of a nerve, though, as well.
Definitely.
I'm the manager!
Yeah.
It's like my daughter.
At one stage, they actually edited out of the version they sent down to us, but at one stage he said, my players are not rubbish, they're not shit.
All right.
Yeah, so he really seemed to take offence to the idea that leaving the lads out was a big bad move.
All right. A reminder that OTB AM is live with Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products.
Meanwhile, Wes Hoolahan enjoyed a winning debut for West Bromwich Albion last night. They secured a 4-2 championship victory over Bristol City. The former Shells man came off the bench for the final 15 minutes of that game. It was a bad night for Preston. They lost 3-0 to Leeds. Alan Brown was in the starting 11 for them. Graham Burke, an unused sub for that match. Aston Villa beat Rotherham 2-0. Conor Horan started for Villa. Richie Towell and Ryan Manning were in the Rotherham 11. While Derby drew 0-0 with Blackburn. Ireland defender Richard Keogh started for Derby. Darragh Lennon and Derek Williams were in the Blackburn side for that game. Well, the former British Prime Minister, Tony Blair, could be in the running to be the next chairman of the Premier League. His name reportedly came up at informal discussions at last month's club's meeting. Other names being floated for chairman or potentially the chief executive job are the former BT boss Gavin Patterson and the man running Sky Sports, Barney Francis. Well, the Mayo ladies football row rumbled on last night. The Connacht Council have upheld Carnachan's reinstatement to league and championship action, which affords them the chance to defend their crown and titles. The 8 Carnachan players involved in the walkout from the Mayo senior team before the All-Ireland qualifier with Cavan, though, have been suspended from club action for 4 weeks. That suspension kicks in today, while the club have been fined €500 for bringing the game into disrepute. Well, the GAA president, John Horan, says the time might be right to appoint a high-performance director. His comments came at the launch of an ESRI report on the strain of playing Gaelic games. Research shows that senior inter-county commitments can take up 31 hours of a player's week and lead them to compromising other aspects of their life. Horan believes the GAA could copy the IRFU and appoint the equivalent of David Nucifora to deal with the pressure placed on players. He's quoted as saying today in the Irish Times, "We are at a point, and it's been shown in the stats, where our younger players are coming under more pressure than our older players because of the multiple commitments to college, under 20, under 21 and to senior team." Horan then posed the question, is it time for us as an organisation to take on board a character similar to David Nucifora in rugby, where we have an actual player welfare officer who ties in with our players, who dictates what is appropriate or not appropriate for our players to engage in?
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I'm not sure if Nucifora is actually the person that they really mean, because basically his job is to manage the business of the contracts and make sure that the succession lines are all through.
He's retention and recruitment more so than player welfare.
Yeah, and there's probably somebody else at each of the clubs who is clocking the minutes and the amount of times that players are having impacts, and that all gets fed back. So somebody somewhere is managing that. Like, you do think that there could be an app for every inter-county player from a development, from the time that they first come to a development squad, the training hours get logged and you can't go over them, or if you do go over them, then clubs are told you are risking this player's health, and so that there's like an understanding that it is your fault if this player burns out and isn't part of our future. One of the other interesting things that they talked about obviously in the report was the amount of travel that so many inter-county teams have to do, the disadvantage that, say, Monaghan, I think, have 24 players living outside Monaghan, Mayo have a bunch of players living in Dublin. This is just one of those things that is actually of benefit to the Dubs, that they've the shortest amount of distance to travel, because we have such a huge industrial centre here. Cork obviously benefit a bit as well, and there's no real way to balance that without the GAA becoming a lobby organisation to try and resettle the Western Seaboard and to push industry there, and to I actually think that this might not be the worst thing for them to do, to showcase small local industries and say we are a community organisation who is involved in trying to keep jobs in the counties.
And that's the problem for the GAA, is that anyone who is able to keep a job in their county, a lot of them tend to be GAA-like jobs, like teachers or games development officers, or some of them work in financial institutions, local banks. So it's very, very difficult, particularly when so much of, as you mentioned here, the industry is based in the capital city. It's hard for players to commit to staying at home.
Yeah, totally. And also, like, you can be a games development officer for a period of your life, but it's not something that I think many people are going to do for their entire lives or careers. It doesn't look like the finance is there to give people increments the whole way up to a point where you're retiring at 60, having done 40 years as a games development officer just yet. Like, we don't have that culture. They probably don't have the money to be able to pay for that.
Yeah, just on your initial point about the 31 hours a week and, say, clubs monitoring their players to avoid burnout, like, that's obviously the reason why players at intercounty level get so badly wrecked, is that over the winter months they're playing so many club games and suddenly it becomes a 12-month calendar. Good luck trying to have a bottom-up approach from that, because I think it makes far more sense if you're going to have an app that you're going to actually have science involved in this. It's got to be from the county team. If you're going to limit minutes and training sessions, it's got to be with the county team first. Good luck trying to get that into clubs.
So the development squads, the inter-county development squads from the age
That'd
of
be
14.
the way to do it.
Yeah.
But obviously, when you go to your club in the winter, it's like you're at their disposal and that's it.
We're talking doppelgangers a little bit earlier on. Darren, who's yours?
Great shout.
I don't see it personally. I think it might be a bit of the ginger beard.
Well, there's not too many good ginger beards in the world, and you both have one of them, so fair play.
That's the nicest thing you've ever said, Eoin.
Somebody in Periscope suggested that to us. So.
Really? It's Niall McGrath's favourite one. Niall McGrath will do that just to annoy me, because I don't know why it annoys me, but I just find it annoying when he says it.
All right, but everybody else is okay.
Everyone else is fine. Thanks to the Periscoper, he's all right.
Yeah, have you been eating any contaminated meat products recently? We're going to run you through the tabloids now, which we haven't done just yet.
Some of the papers we didn't get to earlier on. The Herald this morning is leading with Liverpool. Firmino's eye in for rescue. Late Liverpool winner cancels. PSG come back. The back page of the Irish Daily Mail then this morning is leading with the Mayo story. Mayo hit back is the headline. Bands had it out as ladies split worsens, and you've got it's a red rocket as well. That's their headline on Firmino's late winner in Anfield last night. Golden Eye is the back page of the Irish Daily Star. I like that one. Klopp's lads off to a flyer with great victory. De Gea blanked criticism, says Jeremy Cross's article, and Mayo Chiefs defend Leahy. And then a couple of the UK back pages. Then we'll start with the Daily Telegraph sports section. They lead with fantastic Firmino, Brazilian back from eye injury to conjure up late winner on night of high drama at Anfield. And then finally, The Guardian goes with that picture as well, but the main article on the back is "You disrespect the players. Pochettino loses his cool after Inter's late show stuns Spurs."